welcome to another episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries with myself, Sarah Freeman, one part of the Freeman trio, the other one being my husband, and the third one being our cute, fluffy, lop-eared, blue-eyed, white, bunny Marshmallow. He's currently over there on the ground, sleeping. He's so cute. In today's episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries, I wanted to make another episode about Mount Gambier. My previous episode was about Mount Gambier and how we were there and how Marshmallow seems to have this connection with Jesus that I don't understand because I'm not a rabbit, where he will escape out of the caravan and go and hide underneath someone else's caravan, or go and hide somewhere else and until that person comes out and I start talking with them, and then he will run out and leave. Another story that was on the exact same day actually as the previous episode was Marshmallow once again, after being underneath that lady's next door, the caravan that was next door to us, and then I was talking to the lady and then he ran out and ran straight back into the caravan, which is totally unusual. He doesn't normally do that. He was inside the caravan again, and I went back to setting everything up. And then I put his pen outside and I pegged it in and everything, because I do, so that he can't lift it up, because he often lifts it up, right, and then goes underneath of it because he thinks he's super clever, because he thinks he's a human. And I put all the pegs in and I clipped it together and everything, and I continued setting up the van with Brett, obviously. And then Brett left to go and get a part because a leg on our caravan had broken, so he went to go and get another one. And then I walked around the caravan and came back to the door and realized that Marshmallow wasn't in his pen. And I'm going, oh, not again. Sometimes you're just like, no, Marshmallow, why did you get out? Because you can't use a broomstick. You can't use a stick to nudge him out. You can't do that. He's too smart. He knows what that means. You know, it just doesn't work on him because he's too intelligent, because I made him to be that way with the help of Jesus. He's too smart for our own good sometimes. And so Marshmallow was underneath our caravan. But this time, a caravan with two young children had turned up just across the way from us. They could see that Marshmallow had jumped out of his pen and was underneath our caravan, and that I was walking around saying, Marshmallow, come out, even though I knew that he wasn't going to come out because Jesus wanted someone to come over so that I could talk to them. So that's exactly what happened. These two children saw that my rabbit was out. The parents said, would you like the kids to come over and help you? And I'm like, he's not going to come out, but sure. So they came over. And they crawled under the caravan and they're trying to push him out. I'm going, this isn't going to work. But they pushed him out. They pushed him out far enough that we cornered him. And then I grabbed Marshmallow. I pulled him out. And I was like, this is Marshmallow. And then they patted him and stuff. And then I was like, oh, do you think your mom and dad will want to meet Marshmallow? And they're like, yay! So then I took Marshmallow over to go and meet them. We started talking. Turns out they were from Victoria. They were escaping. That was their words. They were escaping because of all the COVID lockdowns and stuff, because the borders had just opened for non-vaccinated people to be able to come into South Australia. So they had come into South Australia and they were there, and I started talking to them about our situation and things like that, and things that were happening in South Australia, and we just connected. And I said, hey, do you want to do dinner tonight? She's like, oh, I'm going out with my family tonight, but how about tomorrow? And I'm like, great, let's do tomorrow. So the kids brought Marshmallow back in the pen. They got ready. They went out for dinner. Then the next morning, I took Marshmallow over to the clothesline because I'd washed some clothes, and I took them over to the clothesline to hang up. It was a dreary day. It was drizzling, but I was like, I really need to get these clothes dry. And so I went and hung them up on the clothesline. Marshmallow's there, sitting in the grass, eating away. Next thing, all of the children on the playground, every single child on the playground, there was a lot. They all saw Marshmallow and they all just swarmed over. And they just hung out with him and were there with him. And I'm not going to go into too much more detail about them in particular because that's a completely different story. I'm just going to stick on track to the story with these two kids and their family. And so all these kids were there, including those two kids that I'd seen that night. And they were telling all of their friends and stuff, you know, all the other kids, that Marshmallow was coming over for dinner with them tonight and all this stuff. And they're like, oh, I want Marshmallow to come over for dinner with me too. And, you know, all this stuff. You know, Marshmallow sometimes gets way more popular than I do, of course, because he's a bunny in a caravan park on a lead with a harness eating grass. Like, that's just, it's not a dog or a cat. You see that all the time. And so I got to that evening and we went over there for dinner and discovered that we had a lot in common with each other, like a lot in common with each other. They were about 10 years older than us, but we had a lot in common. And obviously they had 2 kids and we didn't. We had a lot in common. And the biggest thing for them was that we were on their side. Like, during COVID, there were those people that just got vaccinated and just did with what the government did. Brett and I did what the government, you know, told us to do sometimes. But some of the things we just thought weren't exactly right. Like experimental medication and vaccines and stuff like that. And these other people from Victoria were so relieved because they hadn't met anyone else that was like them in that way. All of their families did not agree with them, did not agree with their choices. They missed out on Christmases and birthdays and funerals and weddings because they weren't vaccinated. They've lost their jobs because they weren't vaccinated. They've missed out on experiences of kids going to school. And they just thought it was too much and too crazy, and they wanted to go somewhere that was better. So they were coming to South Australia because South Australia wasn't as strict and stuff with COVID like the other states were. And they moved out of their house and into a caravan so that they could be free from all of this stuff. To cut a long story short, Brett and I only booked 2 nights at that caravan park, but ended up staying for a week. And every night we had dinner with them, with that family, or we had lunch with them. We did activities with them. And we really built an awesome connection with them, so much so that we're still in contact with them, which is pretty cool with the aid of technology, and hope to see them again one day if it all meets up and lines up. And really what we take away from that time is, like many of the stories that we share from that time of being on the border of South Australia, Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales, is that many people, in their own words, were trying to escape, were trying to get out, because they didn't agree with what the government was doing, and they didn't agree with how society was going within their own states or even within the country. And so they thought for so long, for that whole time of COVID, that they were the only ones. Like, they hadn't met anybody else that also felt the same way as them. So as soon as they met Brett and I didn't do much talking that week. We did a lot of listening, and we did a lot of agreeing. They just shared. They shared about their pain. They shared about what their kids had missed out on, what they'd missed out on, what their family had missed out on, losing the job, the bullying, the discrimination, the everything that had happened to them just because they chose a different path than what the rest of society was telling them to do. And I think that that's not nice. And we experienced some of that, but not to the same extent that these people from New South Wales and Victoria experienced. So if you are one of the people that I am talking about in this video, one of the people that stood up and stood your ground and didn't follow all of the protocols or all of the recommendations of the government, we are a small breed of people that have lived through one of the biggest changes in history and time in history that have meant that we've been discriminated, that we meant that we've been excluded from things, that we have been put in a different category, and life has been a little difficult with us around family and friends. But we survived and we got through it, and we're happy and healthy because of it. So, yeah. If you are one of those people, however, that feel like you are stuck because of what happened during COVID, you feel like you are the only one that did stand up and say no to all of that government stuff, you are not alone. There is a whole massive community out there that stand with you within your situation and what you stood up for during that time. And good on you, and God bless you. God bless you. I think this might be like one of my most controversial videos yet. God bless you with standing up and making that call and making that decision. Well, I am Sarah Freeman. I'll see you for another episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries soon.